chill stream for Friday. This is the day after Valentine's Day, so people are waking up with love hangovers. We're gonna go ahead and look at EVE Online, check out the news, see if anything's up. Heard a few things, but you know, it's all rumors till it happens. I'm here with Keyboard. How you doing, Keyboard?
I'm doing pretty good. What about you?
I'm good. I'm really good, actually. I have on a personal note, have a physical today, which I imagine I should be having every year. But I'm probably going to be told that I'm gaining weight.
Hopefully that's all they tell you or make you do, though.
Yeah. You know why? Because I used to take long walks at lunchtime on the phone talking to you about TIS and INN and all that kind of stuff. By the way, Keyboard is INN's director of development. So, and by development, I mean the computer technology stuff.
Yeah, I basically tell computers what to do. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. So,
like those little sweepers. Sweep over there. Now go over there.
Exactly. I yell a lot at Roomba all the time at my house.
Okay, let's. All right. Hello. Here we are. I'm on a alt that I don't care about. I'm still a little paranoid about. Maybe you can understand this, Keyboard. The streaming my alts that I actually use. You know, still a little paranoid about that.
Yes. Stream sniping.
Or just
or you doing somebody's list.
Giving them a clue as to like who to scam. You know, because I'm super gullible. So, yeah.
Oh.
You know,
so
like,
you are super gullible. So if I gotta sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, you'll buy it?
Or a wormhole, yeah. I'll buy a C2 wormhole.
Oh, okay.
No problem. All right, let's have a look, because the rumor I've been hearing is that, as you know, the Alliance tournament has been canceled this year. They call it hiatus, which is a nice way to put it, because it is like a TV show once a year. There's a season, and seasons will... I guess sitcoms or whatever would go on hiatus. In other words, they'll be back, but right now they're off. Well, this year, the Alliance tournament is on hiatus, which won't be an Alliance tournament. But it turns out a lot of people were very upset about this. It's not that people don't watch the tournament, and those people are upset. A lot of people understand, sure, you know, well, can't rush things and get it together and throw together a bad tournament. So if you can't do that and you're busy doing other stuff and you want to figure out how to make it better anyway, take a year off and analyze it and then bring it back in a better form, or try experimenting with a new form of Alliance tournament. But the diehards are really mad. Like there's a lot of anger out there because this was their play style and maybe the only thing they logged in for. I don't know. We'll find out. Not all of them. This is going to be just a subset of people that don't log into EVE Online at all except to play the tournaments. That's the only thing they're in for, is the trophies and gladiatorial fights. And then they hold on to that investment. Well, a lot of those guys apparently are, not a lot, some of them are disintegrating their stuff. And there's even rumors of RMT. But, you know, it might just be dirty rumor. I don't know, man, Caesar. I'm thinking if I was somebody who was a tournament player and all I really cared about was tournaments and accruing wealth that way, and I thought, you know what, this game doesn't love me anymore. It's canceled the one thing I liked, so screw them. I'm just going to liquidate all my assets and cash out.
Yeah, that's a understandable emotional response or knee-jerk reaction. I mean, I get it. I mean, it makes sense to say, okay, if I cannot do that properly, then I need to take a hiatus, a year hiatus, exactly like you said. But there's a lot of projection of feelings towards CCP, and okay, they're saying, well, we almost didn't have one last year. Then we cancel it this year. It's never going to happen anymore. So there's a lot of that. So it's understandable, and you know the reaction is saying, I'm going to quit everything. I'm gonna extract all my characters, sell them, maybe RMT, because you know those are the rumors that everybody hears, and then from there, you know, buy them as my character.
Well, what about that RMT though? I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, of course, it's a bad thing overall. But RMTing to cash out for your investment, I don't want to say it's a judgment call on my part. What I'm thinking is, it seems very reasonable to say that I'm going to actually get real money for all the effort I put into this game. You know, before the game's gone and I can't get any money out of it.
You you would think that um, that could be something reasonable. The problem with RMT is that anybody can claim it. So if you make an exception from a group, then everybody's going to claim, oh, I want an exception for this or
Mm.
not, and they then you devolve into a simple, okay, everybody can sell their stuff. And of course you have the real life things that comes with selling things, that you have to pay taxes because government wants their taxes.
Yeah.
So it becomes tricky, especially for a company that's a real entity. You know, CCP is a real company, has to pay taxes to a lot of government.
Yeah, I don't know. It creates a crisis of confidence, which is why so many people get upset about it. We'll go into that in a minute because I want to talk about botting and RMT and that kind of stuff, and how we're all related to one another. So when somebody's either using botting to get ahead or using RMT to cash out, it affects everybody and their confidence in the game because we're all invested in the game. But specifically, I'm thinking in terms of like, if you're a player and you played this game and you've kind of nursed it along and I don't know, put a lot of investment in it, or you want to be the first guy out, right? Because after a while, if you're the last guy out, you're not getting out. Like all your investments just going to waste. Like worst case scenario.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. It's like it's like an analogy of a sinking boat. You want to be out of this boat before it sinks completely. I mean, that's a mentality. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that's a mentality that the people that have these reactions think. I need to get out first, then I RMT and sell all my stuff, or even just sell all the stuff that I have. And but I mean, still, it's a matter of, you know, what the rules are, and should you be allowed or not to do that.
Well, you can't. You allow it, and I mean, what the line is, if you allow abuses of the game, then you're really just using the game as a tool for real life. And there are people who play this game as a game, and they have to kind
Right?
of
The game's still entertainment value. It's to entertain. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not used as an instrument to move money from one country to another, or to money launder, or to move money to let's get real, right? Like to use cyber money to funnel money to, say, nefarious efforts like terrorism is a big one, but also trafficking and whatever. Like virtual currencies can be used to stay anonymous and to launder money. It's a fact, and that's what CCP wants to avoid. They want to stay out of that whole terrible track of abuse and stuff. So that's why RMT isn't allowed in any form, because they really just have to say absolutely not. You can put money into the game, you can't take money out.
Right, it becomes a trap. It's a really complicated thing to allow money coming out. I mean, I don't think any company, any game developer, really, unless I'm mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong in chat or you, Matterall, that any company have solved the problem of taking money out of the game completely. Like, okay, I'm either allow it, or most company take the solution of not allowing it, and that's the stance. But I don't think anybody has solved it in a way that you're allowed to take money out of the game.
I think there's a couple, right? Like you play. Well, I always look at it has an exchange rate in, exchange rate out. The game is Second Life. It's an MMORPG as well, except it's very much player driven. Is that the right way to say it? Where people create the things that they sell in the game, so it's kind of like an open market. There's also Imperium. What's the game that's really cool but super complicated? Imperius one. It's like Risk but more complicated, and it's from Paradox, I think.
Is it an MMO or?
No, It's the one where you
Stellaris.
it's in that family, but shoot, I should know this. Imperius, no, European.
Yeah, yeah, European.
That's it.
Yeah,
You got it.
Europa Universal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Apollyon 210
Thank you.
said European Universal.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Apolly. That's it. I think, is it them that has a way of extracting money from the game? Yeah, Europa Universalis. Yeah. I don't know. I thought they had a bank. I thought they had some kind of a bank. But I could be wrong. I haven't played it yet. I'm pulling up the news.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm pulling up the news services right now. So I got Eve News 24, INN, and I'm thinking New Eden Report, right?
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, but you can't take money out of the game normally. There's a few examples where you kind of could. But anyway, all that to say, RMT is something that is completely and explicitly not a good choice or punishable by banning completely and utterly all your accounts, erasing you from the game if you do it. Bad, bad, bad thing to do. Then we heard rumors that AT guys are basically like, well, I'm done with this game anyway. I just want to cash out.
Right, they lose the fear of the ban, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Last article from February 14th, which was today. And when it's EVE Online on Eve News 24, that means it was basically plucked from somewhere else. Alliance Tournament. Looks like Riverini, the owner of EN24, has written something about it. Go in and see how long that article is. Well, it's mostly a quote. In fact, it's all a quote, really. So that's another article plucked.
Well, you have to open it, though.
I did open it. You'll see in a second. And patch notes. Riverini again pulling patch notes. Really, this has become a just a repasting blog. Here's an actual article. Okay, I didn't mean to dump on Eve News 24. I was just saying, like, what's going on in the news. And you can definitely find out what's going on in Eve here, but...
Right. I mean, the patch notes and that's information. I mean, that's something that sometimes people don't look at the Eve website or even the launcher. I mean, I tune the launcher. I don't even read it. I just hit launch my characters. So if you're tied to an RSS feed, then you get that, and then you can just read it.
Here's your site, Imperium News. Going on here. Guardians Gala, Mistwarden. He's great. He's part of part of TIS as well, and he does great breakdowns and stuff. What's his first? I know this by heart, but Fellaharn. I call him Fellaharn, but he goes by Mistwarden. Well. Neat guy. Wrote down a little bit of a breakdown. Investigate that. Alliance Tournament being postponed. Yeah, these are all original articles, it looks like. So, whereas Eve News 24 is kind of pasting things that you can find anywhere else with a couple of normal articles here and there. INN has a bunch of normal articles, but you're only going to find news that they want to cover. That's the problem I've always had with news services. They really only cover stuff that they're interested in, whoever the writer is. Not to throw any shade at you. You're conspicuously quiet. Okay. Yeah, okay. And so let's go to chat here and see what we got. Stukia says, there are a lot of AT pilots who only play for a few months a year. They only play for the AT, so them quitting really isn't going to make CCP blink. What do we think of that comment?
Maybe. I mean, you don't want to be losing customers.
Yeah. Especially customers like that, because nobody who does the Alliance tournament in a serious way is a character you want to lose or a player you want to lose, even if they're only playing for the tournament, because they have the potential to go out and make things happen. Those are the keys to this whole place. You know how a corporation kind of lives or dies by 1 or 2 or 3 people, and even alliances of corporations really live and die by the work of 10, 12, 15 people. Those are key
Yeah.
people. They
Same as
are.
real companies. Real companies
Oh
does
yeah.
the same thing. Yeah, I mean, real companies, there's usually just a group core of people that make the business happen. If you lose them all in a succession, then you have a big problem.
That's when the stock drops, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, huge companies, the numbers go higher, right? Now you have 100 people, you have 200 people that are key.
Yeah. That's interesting, and I'd like to think that that Eve has, these space corporations that are run like real corporations. Well, they are and they aren't, right? You don't really fire people, um, or the pressures aren't the same at all. You're not responsible for a person's family if you fire them, stuff like that, as a CEO. And it's really easy to just quit a corporation here without having any real life considerations of, oh my God, how do I pay for my house? But it is neat to see that a lot of the behavioral patterns kind of follow the same thing. They set themselves up, they emulate real life. We'll act like this. We'll do it like they do it in real life.
Well, that's because the corporation in Eve or the guild, it's really an organization of human beings. So that the game doesn't change that, and the
Yeah.
way you organize that, it's really similar to corporations in real life.
Yeah.
The point of a corporation in real life is make money. Corporation in Eve, its goal is to have entertainment, right? Get entertainment from the game, or what is called content.
Right.
So, so that's the parallel, right? The more efficient you are, the more content you get, the more people you get, the bigger you get. So it goes down that path.
Yeah. And so you have parallels between real life and Eve in the way people set themselves up, organize themselves, and who those people are that are doing the setting up and the organizing and how critical they are. So bringing this back to the Alliance tournament, the guys that play for the Alliance tournament are usually very specifically organized. Well, these guys that might be saying, this is all I do, don't play the game at Eve except to go into this. They're very organized in a certain way to play the game, and they're capable at any time of going out and making things happen. Again, not the people you want to lose in a game.
Well, the thing is, if let's say your roadmap is to cancel this year because you don't have the dev cycles and you want to bring it up the next year,
Hmm.
well, next year you have to basically start over from, or almost start over from scratch. I mean, you might get some people back. It's the analogy of I have a store and my customer leaves the store. I don't know if he's going to come back.
Yeah.
So the same way, these people say I'm not going to come back to the game anymore, and then the next year happens. Maybe some of them will come back, 20%, 30%, or maybe 70%. But that you lose people by doing that, and going back to CCP, they have to look at that because it's part of their revenue stream, right? You're losing either paying customers or you're losing customers that buy the time that other customer bought.
Yeah. Through the capsulization of time in the form of Plex. Yeah.
So they CCP does seem. I mean, you have to care the moment you throw down the books. Accounting comes and says, "Dude, your revenue went down on February 2019. What's up with that? You have a decrease in revenue." That's gonna show really big in the executive
Yeah.
at the highest level, because that's what you're looking for. You're looking at each quarter. I mean, it's probably going to be quarter, right? Not specifically month to month, but it companies move slow. That's just life. So they look at quarters.
Yeah. The this out on sure. Yeah, so what as far as like your gameplay, does the Alliance tournament come into focus for you? Is it something that you worry about?
To my personally gameplay, not much. I used to watch any stream, usually the final. But
Have you been watching it
that
lately as a fan?
I watched the last match,
Just the finals?
the finals. The last year, I just saw the finals. But that's just me personally. I mean, I think the AT has a place in the game. Even though if I don't play it, should it's a feature of the game.
You like knowing it's there, right?
Yeah, you don't want to have a product that keeps losing features, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. A lot of the stuff, writing on that a little bit, a lot of the stuff that is interesting about Eve is not what you do, but it's what you have the possibility to do. So just knowing something's out there as you know, part of the population of the game is interesting. So when any of those things kind of go away, or any of those play styles go away, it's a big deal. Now, we're saying go away, but it's for 1 year. This is going to come back next year.
Well, did they say that they're going to come back next year, or they just said they're taking a hiatus?
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? If it's going to come back next year, that's good. It might not, or it might, right? The thing is, we don't know. Right?
Yeah. So. Yeah.
And like Mercutius announced today is saying, you know, this is going to come back, but you know, that is not a binding contract, which is correct, right? You know, company might cancel it next year without even telling you. They just stop talking about it, or they might bring it back even bigger, right? We simply don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know, but we have very stern assurances that it will come back from Paul or CCP Falcon, who's the community manager, but also it just come from dinner with the CEO of the company. So they probably talked about it, and they probably are pretty determined to bring it back. So I would say, like, of course, there's no way to know,
right?
But
right, I mean, if the CEO if it's in the CEO's mind, then he will find the money somewhere. He'll cut something. If he needs to bring DevSac, he'll cut something to make it happen. Right? There's a will, there's a way. So you know, it can happen, right? It's all about probability. 80% chance it's gonna happen, maybe. 60% chance it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
could be. I mean, you're just throwing down numbers now.
I love talking to you, Caesar, because you're such a business mind. You know, you have such clarity when you're talking about, and maybe it has to do with your real life work, which we won't talk about, but clarity in how businesses are run, and how it relates to what CCP would likely do. And I love that. So you have a CEO who wants something done, he's going to find the money for it. That's neat.
Right. Yeah, he's gonna find it somewhere, a way to do it. I mean, he'll cut something or change something. It's how much political power he's gonna spend on pushing that out, right? And I mean, if he informally, right, said that he wants to make it happen, then there's a high chance that it's gonna happen, right? Now, of course, he has to balance things out and say, okay, next year might be a bad year for Eve, and then we have even less money. So, or maybe if more people come into the game, we have more money, and then maybe we get it back.
Yeah, well, I think they need to do something, right? Because the way it was going, it wasn't a growing proposition. It was getting tighter and tighter, more exclusive. So they had to do something. So taking a year off to think about it might not be the worst thing. Just real.
Right. That's true.
So we have a suggestion here from Tamiya Cowboy, who was here the other day. Raise prices of Plex to cover the tournament costs. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? To have I'll just entertain that for a minute. I don't know how real that is, but have like a tournament tax.
Oh, you instead of Plex being $20, it's $25.
Yeah, or you collect it internally and just make it part of the role play. Collect it through Plex.
Well, you have to pay the developers in money, not Plex.
Well, you know, but Plex is debt, right? So you're taking debt off the shelf and you use that as well, whatever. You know, we can just toying with the idea.
I mean, it will be
Alliance tournament tax. You got to pay it.
That's true. I mean, you can always. I mean, if we're throwing, probably shouldn't say this to give bad ideas out there, but you can sort of. Well, they still play Plex to get into the tournament, so they already do this. Mm-hmm. I thought about you playing real money to get into the tournament as a fee, but they already do that with Plex, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to shove off to Jita on this character and check out some of the prices. I want to look at Plex, see if it's dipped now that there's a sale on. As you know, Plex prices were, God, they were just skyrocketing. They're the highest they have ever been. I think that goes back to 2008 when they were introduced. If not, very close. If they were ever, I think they're actually as high as they've ever been, bar none. Yeah, I play with sound. Matterall plays with sound because, God, if you don't play with sound, you're losing half the immersion, in my opinion. Clearly, when you're in a big fight and things are just moving, you know, 1/10 of the speed, there's no point. Or maybe that's when you do listen to music or something. I don't know.
Or take a nap like I did.
Yeah. I think that whole thing has always bothered. It actually, I take it very personally when people are like, Eve has no sound. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? That is, that to me was always insulting, even when I heard that. And it's not like I made the sound, but I just felt like, God, playing without sound for me is, no. Of course, that comes from people who are advanced players who basically are doing something else while they're playing, or they are just listening to their voice comms with one another, which is always a third-party thing, or always at the elite level was TeamSpeak or Mumble or now Discord. So they're not listening to the game, they're listening to each other.
Well, it's like Commander A says, if you play multiple clients, the sound it's not good.
Yeah, but now you can fix that with the launcher, right? You can launch a group and only one can have a profile that has sound, so you can just be listening to one. I have to admit, sometimes I'm listening to something else when I'm, say, not slow boating, but hauling something, so I will only allow the sound of the jump gates to go through, and so that way I can keep tabs on how many jumps I'm doing while I'm listening to something else. You know, so you play with sound, you minimize it, highlight things that you want to hear, take out things you don't. But if I'm playing for enjoyment, which is most of the time that I play, it's not to fight in big fights, it's to enjoy the immersive virtual world. I want to hear it, I want to watch it. If I could smell it, I would want to smell it. Who knows what that would smell like in different regions, right? Like, I just get this feeling that Wicked Creek smells really bad.
I guess it's the word wicked and the word creek.
Yeah, it's almost like Rotten Creek or something, and that you don't want to smell a Rotten Creek.
Well, it's not in a video game.
Yeah. Well, this is cool. I love it when chat talks to themselves. We should read out some of the stuff they say, but I like it when, to me, streaming is all about that channel. That's really what it's about. It's the communication between people. And Discord that we have, that's more of a permanent chat area, is the same thing. And I really love what's happening with TIS lately, in that it's becoming kind of a hub of conversations from different parts of the game. So there's nobody dominating TIS. It really feels like a way station, and that is the whole vision for talking in stations, is a way station for pilots from all over the galaxy coming through, stopping for a minute, and then taking off. You know, it's just kind of like a place that everybody kind of goes through. is talking in stations. Cool,
That
man.
makes sense. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to like not try to give information and just chill out, but I can't stop talking when the camera's on because I feel like that's what it's got to be about, right? But I'll get this. I'll figure out how to do chill, proper chill stuff. Yeah, the independent thing, we could talk about that. I'm going to put you in the hot seat, though, Caesar, since you're my colleague at INN and I was there for 2 years. But we could talk a little bit about being independent, what that means, because I actually got some pretty good news from CCP. Can't really talk about it yet, but just that being independent really helps. Being part of any alliance or and I'm not talking about Imperium here, I'm talking about NC. If I was like the news guy from NC Dot, like if I was an NC Dot leadership or had any say-so in it, it would be a problem. But I don't have anything to do with decisions NC makes. Or wow, what ship is that? Oh, is it Peter? Cheryl. Thing just scared me.
Came out of nowhere.
Beautiful. Look how big that thing is. Wow. So it's not a problem because I don't really identify with NC Dot at all. I love my corporation. That's why I'm there. DICE, Destructive Influence, and you know, I like Lady Scarlet a lot and like the guys in DICE a lot. They're like family. But you don't hear about that on TIS because that's not what it's about. It's independent and being apart from any interests in the game. I'm likely to criticize NC as much as I am Imperium, as much as I am Skill U. Well, maybe not Skill U because I don't like their name. It offends me, but other groups. And it's important to be independent that way so that you don't... at this point, all I want to do is talk about EVE as a game and me as a player as individual. Not as, this is my team, this is that team, and stuff like that. And all I ever want to do is give insight to people who are coming up. Because I think back when I started the game and I wanted to learn, but people talked in terms I didn't understand. They talked fast. They were talking to each other. They weren't talking to me. And I wanted to be in there. I wanted to be part of that club and listen to what they were saying and understand it. So then the whole mission for the last 4 years of writing articles and putting together news podcasts and stuff like that has always been, and it's the mission of a lot of people, to teach, to open up the doors. Not necessarily to teach, because I'm not a good teacher. You'll see I'll probably get killed just going to GITA, but to open the doors of elite gameplay to people who don't understand the terms yet, to people who don't understand the concepts yet, or the tricks or the tips or all the advanced play and stuff like that. I don't know all that stuff, but I get the people that do, and we try to open them up to you guys in an understandable way. And that's, I mean, that's really what Talking in Stations is. Now, being independent is a big part of that, because if you can't be trusted, then all that information goes to waste on certain people. So we try not to buy into narratives. We try to flush things out without killing the drama, right? Because drama's great. It's part of the whole game.
It's true. I gotta take a quick break.
All right. I don't know why I talked so much. I had you here and I totally wasted it. So come back when you can.
Okay. I'll be back in a moment.
All right, man. If you guys out there, and there's only a few of you, but if you guys want to hang out, I'm willing to hang out. I'm going to look at news right now. And, you know, you can just jump into public channel here in Discord. Of course, mind the rules that Twitch has, and if you jump in and do something terrible, I'll just have to eliminate you, and that would be unfortunate. But you're welcome to come and hang out and talk about anything you want to talk about.
Hey, how's it going?
Commander A's, how's it going?
It is going pretty well. It is going pretty well.
You were in the Alliance tournament. You have any thoughts on that?
So, I'm apparently the one person that's relieved that we get a year off.
Oh, yeah?
Like, I know a lot of people out there are like, you know, it's a travesty that it's gone and all of that, but, I mean, if you look at the last 3 years, the tournament went from having feeder rounds because there were so many teams trying to get involved to not even enough teams having to have everyone have a first round match. You know, when you have the first top 10 teams getting first round buys because you don't have enough attendance of actual teams, you know, it doesn't exactly scream that, hey, the tournament scene is super healthy in its current state. So, you know,
I just think they don't have the staff to make up for the time. They're crunched for time. They don't have time to really rethink the rules without making a major mistake, right? Or at least risking it. And in that situation, I think it's an easier decision to say, let's just not rush it. Let's not do the same thing we did last time because it got lower ratings than the time before that and the time before that. So let's not give them the same show a second time. And we can't possibly develop prizes fast enough because the art team is like, that's not our priority. We got to do stuff for the game. And I think that's what happened, really. They just couldn't secure the commitment to get all the things done that needed to be done in order to make it even a fair tournament, even the same tournament.
Oh yeah.
So they're like,
you know, part of what I've been thinking recently is maybe CCP should get out of the tournament business altogether.
what?
So and let me clarify that by saying,
Yeah, hurry.
give it to us. Give us the tool, allow us to run our own tournaments, and supply us with, you know, mid-tier skins and stuff like that, so that we have, you know, prizes that we can give out and have prize pools that way, taking all of the burden off of CCP to run anything. You know, similar to the way that like CS:GO does it, where you know, you approach them, hey, I need a tournament code to run this tournament. They'll provide a couple of extra prizes for you, and you know, teams will put in for, you know, an entry fee, and that entry fee is used to create or generate the prize pool.
So counterpoint immediately is you can't trust anybody in EVE to run a tournament because they might be bought off. They might have. Yeah, can you imagine someone puts a tournament together that's very well trusted, just like the EVE-NT guys that do the tournament stuff, and something goes wrong, and you know, it's like, aha, this was a way of getting rich in the game anyway, and then everybody celebrates that sort of thing anyway, so there's no really blowback to that. Now, that, of course, wouldn't happen because those guys are way beyond needing any kind of wealth. But I can already see, like, if it's in the game and players are involved, then the meta, then anything is okay in the meta because, hey, it's just a game. Like, I almost have to preserve it in the confines of this is official.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but at the same time, you know, I think having more tournaments is going to provide more of an opportunity for teams to develop and become competitive, and then at some point CCP can run, you know, the big tournament of the year, you know, where all the minor prize pools don't really matter. And I mean, you know, comparatively speaking, like the AT, like a victory in the AT for first place is effectively more than 5 trillion-esque. Like,
wow.
You know, very few people have put that together in their head, but you get 25 of each of the ships, totaling 50 ships worth over 100 billion-esque apiece. Put the math together, boom, 5 trillion. Plus all of the skins and the Plex prizes for winning, for getting into the various different tiers. Like, you know, effectively speaking, it's a huge prize. So, you know, is there an incentive for and have teams in the past colluded and had issues with that? Yes.
Twice.
But are they going to risk that for a minor tournament where the skin is worth $1 billion or a couple billion for winning? You know, and if it gets caught, then you ban them from the larger tournament as well as a punishment. You know,
like Arya says here, EVE players cannot be trusted. Now, I don't know if he says that or he just quotes it, so maybe he's not owning that statement. Oh, okay, so he's saying that CSM have gotten past EVE players cannot be trusted, so why wouldn't Alliance tournament directors. That's a good point. That's a very good counterpoint. And I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think there's so many people that play EVE not for EVE itself anymore. That you could definitely find people. I think somebody suggested talking in stations. Like maybe we make a talking in stations Alliance tournament. That is so funny to say out loud.
Yeah.
But you know, if we did do an Alliance tournament, I don't think it would be this sealed off gladiatorial style thing. I think that's very selective. That's a certain play style, right? You got to be good at small gang, piloting your ship. It's got to be smaller ships. Absolutely no capitals in there. And you're sealed off, and you have a time limit, and you know nobody's going to escalate on you, and you know, like, it's very constrained, as Elise Randolph was saying in his written piece on Reddit, which didn't get a lot of views, but should have. It's not a perfect scenario of what EVE Combat is by far. It's really just how well you know the mechanics, how well you know the fittings, the modules that go into ships, and how well you know the theory crafting, what a ship is really good for. And then beyond that, where I think the actual skill for Alliance Tournament is figuring out how ships work together in a certain way, if everybody performs their duties in their ships the right way. So that's a very constrained gameplay that the tournament focuses on. I would not say that Alliance Tournament pilots are like, I don't know, they may be the best pilots in EVE, pound for pound. Sure, I could give them that, but I wouldn't say they're the most influential pilots in EVE by far, because any one of these pilots would be taken out by 3 or 4 other pilots that aren't very good at all, because numbers matter in EVE. That's why really when you look at the landscape of politics, it's who has the most players these days. Heck, even NC is growing way past what we used to be like 1,000 at the most, and now we're well into the 3,500. So check that out. The point is, Alliance Tournament is a microcosm of the actual combat system, and the theory crafting and all that kind of stuff, and the piloting skills, sure. But there's none of the other elements. So if AT were to do a tournament, sorry, if TIS were to do an Alliance Tournament, I think we would say, like, all right, find a way to get capitals involved, and find a way to have different goals and to just kill each other on the field. Okay, yeah, so let's see if I get killed.
So one of the things that we had, one of the things the Imperium's done, is we had kind of like a FC showdown, where it was, you know, an FC's given 5 billion ISK. You're allowed to fit out 50 total ships, and then fight another comparable sized fleet, you know, at 50 with the same constraint of 5 billion ISK. You know, I think that was, I thought it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they, you know, progressed through a bracket, and, you know, it was all about, you know, which FC could come up with the best doctrines to kill each other off. I think everybody had fun in the process, and I think that there's room to grow on that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of combinations. I like what Stukia says here. He says don't jump in or you die, and you die. It was him that said it, I think it was, or somebody else said defending a mothership, for instance. Yeah, oh, sorry, that was Apollonia or Apollon 210. Yeah, defending a mothership. Exactly what I'm thinking is you know, change what you're trying to do in the actual tournament, or make it more of a triathlon rather than a boxing match. Make it different things, and then the group can have different squads. I don't know, maybe that's asking too much, but you have a 5-on-5 team that does a certain amount of fighting, but then you also have like a 10-man defend this for a certain amount of time from 3 other alliances that are coming after you. You know, it could become more of a decathlon rather than tournament, and then you're involving more EVE aspects of EVE, know, like mine this, build this, and do that kind of thing. I don't know. There's, you know, those Iron Man sports. They're pretty popular on television. So I can't. I wouldn't know if this would work. And then you make it over. You could make it over a period of a week, so things are progressing. I don't know. That doesn't seem exciting and super enthralling in the moment, but it does represent Eve a bit better. Yeah, capture the flag. I always thought that was a better. You know, they could do something. They could do something. It's just a slugfest. It's really a DPS battle. It's really a test of people's competency of the combat system. So it really should be almost like a combat tournament rather than an Eve Alliance tournament. It really only tests small gangs. And so you have incredibly influential groups like Goonswarm and Test that they're influential because they have so many people and they can organize so many people in an effective way. But in the Alliance tournament, they usually do really badly. But you know what the Alliance tournament was really good at, though, was recruiting people to top teams. Like, you were a small team, like PL, for instance. One of my goals in Eve early on was after I saw Pandemic Legion win their first tournament, I was like, I want to be in Pandemic Legion. That's my goal. And whatever I need to do to earn my way up to that, I'll do. You go to, you know, you work into a certain group that has a good reputation. You know, they're off anybody's radar, but they have a good reputation in the small arena of alliances. Then you work there for a while, and then you move to a different place, and you work, and you're building your resume, just like real life, right? In these corporations. Join corporations, you build your resume, build your PvP kills, and then you get kind of, you know, you apply to a place that has more, a little more reputation, and ultimately have a goal. And my goal at a certain point was to get into PL after they were really good in the Alliance tournament. That's just the way it used to be in Eve. But I think that all got flipped on its head with like this whole thing of like, don't worry about that progression. You don't have to do that progression. Just join us in Test. Just join us in Brave. Just join us in Goonswarm, you know. In fact, Goonswarm used to be kind of locked out. Like, you had to be part of, or at least they publicly said this. I don't know if it was true, but you have to be part of our group outside the game in order to be part of our group inside the game. You have to belong to this forum. And then if you belong to that forum, then you're automatically in, and we don't care if you're good or bad. There's no pressure. But you got to belong to this group first. So that was the key to that. So it wasn't quite as open as like Test or Brave. And I, by the way, think that Brave was just a clean version of Test, because Test was such a disaster socially. There's Dunk Dinkle. He can tell us all about Brave. He's been with them since the beginning, pretty much. And he says the idea was to join and learn as part of a group, not learn everywhere else, only to join the elite. And that's a good point. So it was a complete opposite of what the career path was for a typical Eve player between 2000 and it got serious in 2005 and 6 and through 2010. That progression in those years where you work your way up just like in a corporation. And Brave Test maybe first, but not really. I think Brave was the first one that said you can skip all that and just come here and just have fun. And all it is about fun. And we're gonna die, and we don't have any pride in that way. But you'll get right in, and hopefully you'll be able to see the big stuff. You know, the Titans, the motherships, or super carriers. You'll be able to see nullsec. You'll be able to see a big fight, all within your first week or 2 or 3. Skip all that waiting around and earning your way up and only hearing about what's going on out there. Just jump in and do it, because it's just a video game. Have some fun. But I think, Dunk, that bypasses a big part of what makes Eve attractive, at least to me and like me, older guy. That slow burn, working your way up is all part of the chase. I don't know what camp you're in, Commander A's, but what would you say to that? Did you go and have like a sandwich? Did I talk you into silence? Okay.
Oh, no, I'm still here.
I'm hanging out with chat anyway, so whatever. So do you, are you part of the, when did you start playing Eve? Because that'll tell me a lot about you, by the way. I always ask that. When did you start playing Eve? Because I think I know what you're about.
Talking to me or talking to chat?
That was a general question in chat, but you tell me, Andres.
God, 2008, maybe.
Okay, yeah, my generation.
So it's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a very long while.
Amar is joining us. How you doing, Amar?
Hey, I'm good.
And
you guys?
Let me ask you the same question, Amar, because we've talked a few times, and you're an interesting guy. You played Eve early on, right, and then took a big break.
Yeah, I joined for the first time during the beta in.
Yeah, you guys say beta.
2002, 2003. Beta. Yeah, I'm from Sweden, so
yeah,
I might have some weird pronunciations. But yeah, I played a little bit during those times, and then I came back in 2010, played quite a bit, and I've been back for about. But it's quite interesting when you're talking about the Alliance tournament, because I've been away from the game for very long times. But I think I'm not alone in this, but I've often come to Eve just to watch the Alliance tournament, even when I haven't been playing.
Wait, so you've watched it every year, you mean?
I don't think I've seen it every year, but I've seen plenty of them. Probably like 8, 9, 10 over the years, most likely. Because I've always found it to be quite.
I got news for you. Sorry, man. There's 17. So if you've only watched,
yeah,
9,
well,
I
haven't been playing nearly as long as I've been consistently watching the Alliance tournament. But I always enjoyed the format. I was quite sad to see that they decided not to have it this year, because I've always looked forward to it as a spectator. But I was just listening to your conversation, and I always felt myself as well as a player that it seemed to be quite far-fetched to be part of it yourself. I mean, it has seemed to be a sort of an event for the elite to participate in. And I think there's tons of room for doing other stuff with the Alliance. I think you touched several of those things, incorporating other aspects of Eve, making some parts of the tournament maybe not as serious or as elite PvP-ish. When I played back in 2010, I actually I planned to join the Alliance tournament with my current corporation and Alliance as a gag, because I planned to go in with jump freighters just for.
You got cut off there, I think. I think you said just a minute, so okay, we'll give you a.
Just a minute?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my connection is acting up. It's still acting up.
No worries. Yeah, we'll give you a second. Right now I'm looking at the Plex prices. I wanted to talk about those in a second. Why they shoot up over time? What's going on with them? Why are they dipping now? Is it a good time to buy?
That's my kind of topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've been ranting on Discord for so long now, and so much.
But finish your story about the Alliance tournament.
No, but my point was just that I think there's a lot of room to make the Alliance tournament more than just a tournament where you sort of figure out who's the best PvPers in the game at the moment in terms of small gang PvP. I think you can add so many entertainment aspects to it. Like I was about to say, I wanted to join it back in 2010 with jump freighters, just for shits and giggles, and lose a ton of ISK doing it. Not sure everyone would have enjoyed that, but I think there's so much more you can do with it. So for that reason, I think it's a good thing to reevaluate. And I think you just mentioned several things that could really improve the tournament or the event as a whole, what it could be.
Well, let's look at Plex. This is something you're good. So tell me about your background in the economy of Eve.
Well,
do you have a background? Am Am I?
Yeah, I do have a background, I guess. I've been doing a lot of stuff. I try to do everything I can do in Eve,
Yeah.
just to get a sense of it, because Eve is a very complex game, and what I do mostly is trading. That's my go-to in Eve. That's what I did in 2010, and actually I did. This is quite silly. When I played the beta, I actually did trading in the beta, which was quite sad. But then again,
No,
people
that's
were
not.
using cruises to mine and stuff. So I mean,
That's not
but
sad. That's
well, everyone else was pew-pewing, and I was like in the station trying to make as much ISK as I could, even though I wouldn't keep
hold
any
on
of
to
that
it.
when the game launched. So, but yeah, I enjoy doing that, and I think you have to be slightly crazy.
Your connection got you again. It sounds like. We'll wait for you. In the meantime, though, I'm going to look at this. Looks like I knew this, but I'm glad you guys told me as well. So, Demouse and True Messenger and Jalian, thank you guys for telling me that there is a 10% off Plex sale. And now it's extended. It looks like it's extended all the way down to. Oh no, it's not. I was going to say the individual Plex buy, but it's not. If everything goes on sale after you pay $40 or more. I can
Yeah, it's a 1,100 plex and up, I think.
Right. So this normal buying of like, yeah, I'll just buy 500 plex, which is basically a month of game time, is still $20. That's the normal price. So nothing is on sale unless you're buying in bulk, starting at twice that, basically. So $40 is on sale for a few dollars off.
It's a quite weird cutoff, considering that we were quite spoiled with sales and discounts in general during 2018.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people were waiting for this one. I think more people were expecting the sale, perhaps on Galaxy packs again, because that was a while since we had that.
There's a couple things I want to talk about. The Galaxy packs are one of them. But let's go back to 2018. Now, I noticed that there was a ton of sales, and really the Plex price got hammered all the way down to 2.7 million per Plex. You need 500 Plex to make a month of game time for yourself. 2.7 million, and right now it is at 6, close to 6. I think it's 5 right now because it's dipping because of the sale. But if you look in the last month, no, it is 6, at least if you buy outright. If you put up a buy order, you can get it for less, but you'll have to wait to see if somebody fills your buy order. But if you're out to just grab it and you buy it, it's going to cost you, nearly $1 million more. So that's, if you think about it, 500 million more than it was 6 months ago for 1 month of game time. And that's pretty substantial. That's a big, big change. Now, if you really want to think of why that's important, because there's people that hold on to hundreds of thousands of Plex. And so if they bought it and at, let's say, whatever price, and it went up if it went up $1 million per, that's a substantial money gain for them. So that difference is huge, especially in the Plex market, which always sells and will always be in demand, and the price is almost always moving. So last year it dipped down after being hammered sale after sale after sale after sale. Why did CCP have so many sales? And I wonder if it wasn't to, and I'm just totally reaching for this, but to make the company look more attractive to be bought, which it was.
I think that's a very reasonable speculation. I mean, that's what all companies do if they have a sale coming up or if they want to sell the company. So I think that's quite to be expected.
Let me be clear. That's 3.5 or 3.6 million per Plex. You need 500 of those. So if somebody does the math for me, it must be 1.6 billion to pay for a month of game time. Just to be clear, somebody could do the math. That'd be great. Otherwise, I'll do it. But yeah, I think they were basically hammering the game to work on it, to condition it financially to be bought. It was bought, and ever since it was bought, those sales kind of dried up. And so, is it ever going to go back down?
But now, you have to remember, we had a few other events as well.
Like what?
Especially after the summer. I don't know if you remember, but we had that post on Reddit where a self-proclaimed programmer and botter said he would stop playing and stop botting, and he made a prediction that the Plex prices would crash. And the Plex market is quite speculative, as well as a few of those other items like large skill injectors and stuff. So I think that sort of exploited the downward spiral after the sales that had been going on, and then it quite quickly went up again. Even though we still had the sales, we still had more sales during the late fall and winter. And
did we?
We had another. We had a couple of smaller Galaxy Pack sales, and we had a quite big one that was for a short period of time, where the Galaxy Packs the multiple pilot training certificates went from 1.2 billion down to 950 million.
Yeah, let's look at those. I'll bring those up. These things.
So, I mean, those two tend to go together a bit. And but I mean, people were expecting there's a quite famous trader and streamer, I believe. I don't think he's streaming now, but I watched an episode of him for maybe 6 months ago, and he was asked the question, "What should I do with my ISK if I want to make a long-term investment?" And his answer, the way he gave it, made it sound so obvious that if you're gonna do anything, invest in Plex, because the only way Plex is going to go is up.
Yes and no. I think, and they have said, CCP has said that they have a way of interfering with Plex to bring the price down, because at a certain point, it hurts the population. There's a lot of people who play this game. They've been playing it years. One of the ways that they can continue to play it that way is to play it for free. Now, they can do that as an alpha, but that may not work for them. So they need to be able to pay for the game time in-game currency. But if the prices get too high, that really hurts them. A lot of those people would maybe reduce down to alpha, and that's the first step out, maybe the door. And so you don't want to let that happen. So CCP's interest is to keep the Plex prices at a certain point, but not to regulate them strongly. But I don't think it will always go up. I think that it will go up, it will come down, it will go up. It will heat and cool just like the regular market. It just makes so much sense to me, unless there's inflation, and there is really no inflation in EVE Online for various economic reasons. You essentially can buy a battleship now for a little bit more than you used to be able to buy it 10 years ago. And the only reason it's a little bit more is not because the market's at work or supply and demand is fluctuating in significant ways. It's because they literally said it costs more to build them. So it costs more minerals to build them. And that's why you see a price change. So if there's inflation, it's some weird or beyond my understanding of inflation. But I don't think you can do that to Plex, because at some point you're going to start to affect players' willingness to keep running in the little, what do you call it? The gerbil wheel or whatever that is. A lot of players put in a lot of work to earn money in the game, but they can pay for the game where they put a lot of work into the game to pay for the game. See how that works? So, yeah.
I mean, that's been sort of the basis for a lot of the discussions in terms of the Plex prices and the sales and all that stuff, because it comes down to one simple, well, it's not a simple question, but the question is, what is it that CCP has as the main priority at the moment? Is it making as much revenue as possible? Or is it perhaps to maintain the player base and expand on that? Those two obviously go together. The more players you have paying for the game, the more revenue they will have. But looking at the past year and the sale that did happen, my personal opinion was that the focus was more on revenue. And if you this is where opinions might differ as well, because it does run quite deep. Plex is quite complex as an economic.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Mar, you're getting hit with your timeout again. I hate it. It happens to me during shows. We'll give you a minute to recover. The other thing about this, we're not looking at Plex at the moment. We're looking at these. I wanted to point out, this is the they're called MPTCs. They're sold mostly to character farmers in substantial ways, but anybody could get this. It's a multiple pilot training, which means you can train a second account at the same time, or you can train a third account, use two. So you can have all your characters on one account training. And the point of that is it's always something that people wanted in EVE. They wanted to be able to train multiple accounts, and CCP didn't give anybody that option. So in the old days, or now as well as the old days, you used to have to pick which character you were going to improve. But this certificate allows you to improve all three characters at the same time, but it costs you something. And so that's how CCP decided to deal with that. People wanted it. They didn't want to give that out for free. So they said, you can do it, but you can do it if you buy these permission slips. And those are the certificates. And so those certificates are usually part of a sale package that CCP puts out as a way of incentivizing people to buy a bigger and bigger package. You get one, you get like a group of Plex plus an MPTC. Maybe you get in a different package more Plex and then 2 MPTCs. And so it's a way of kind of like spicing up the packages they can offer. That said, they can be sold in game as well for money, and they're usually running behind Plex. You'll notice Plex runs pretty much here since August, basically, the end of summer. You see, Plex is coming down all summer till September, and then it's been having a pretty steady climb with some hot points and low points. But if you look at multiple character training, it doesn't follow the same trajectory. It actually goes up, gets slammed down, goes up, gets slammed down, goes up, gets slammed down, and until recently went down, and now it's just super overheated. Now, what was going on here? Why is it different than Plex? It's different because a lot of sales packages had these multiple pilot training certificates attached to them. So when Plex sales weren't that great, they made up for it by really putting a lot of MPTCs on the market as part of sales packages. So when people would buy those sales packages, they really just wanted to buy those to sell the certificates, to get the ISK. They don't really want to train a second character. They just want the ISK, so they sell those off. And so when you have a lot of people selling something at the same time, like you just bought it, so did another 100 people just bought that package, everybody wants to cash out, the price is going to the market gets flooded and the price goes down because people are willing to sell it for less and less and less because they really just want the skin to get out. So that's what these drops are. These are sales. They mark sales, every one of these. And Explorer packages, right? Is that what you were talking about?
Galaxy packs.
Yeah.
There's a few other ones as well, but that's the big one. You get 2 multiple training certificates, a bunch of Plex as well, and I think it's skill extractors, 5 of them. But it goes way back. This goes back to, I think it's March 2018 that you have the first real big Galaxy pack sale. And like you just mentioned, Matterall, you have a quite limited demand for those multiple pilot training certificates because it's mostly the skill farmers that use them. So when you have the sales, they tend to stock up and they hold them for rougher times ahead. The interesting thing is that before March 2018, you can buy a multiple training certificate from the New Eden store. It costs 485 Plex to buy it. And those were in line in terms of how much they cost on the actual in-game market with the Plex prices up until that point where you had that sale.
Yeah.
And then the market got completely flooded and it kept on going. Like you mentioned, there were several sales throughout the year. You could see the price curve going up and down. And it's not until now that we have the multiple pilot training certificates being in line with the Plex prices again. It's taken a year for the market to sort of run through those excess stockpiles that managed to build up.
It really caught up fast, didn't it? I mean, the pilot training certificates are just on fire.
Yeah, that also lined up with we had the skill injectors during the December month with 13 days of Eve and all that pressure that went into people buying skill injectors with those your favorite.
We'll talk about that if you want. That's right here. If you're looking at the screen, that's you can see this is the volume that's selling, and it's relatively stable throughout the year until this 1 month, and that's December, January, and it just goes nuts. It doubles essentially in volume that's being traded and sold, and you can see the price just went up, way up. But go ahead. These are large injectors that we're looking at the moment.
Yes, I mean those things kind of line up, and that's why it's really complex, because there's so many things affecting these items and the prices of them in the game. The external manipulations that are caused, for example, by CCP sales have a big impact, but there's an underlying trend that says that these prices will continue to go up due to various aspects of the game, like more is coming into the game and maybe fewer players playing, more players playing, etc. Yeah. But the thing with the skill injectors was that you had that last sale of the Galaxy packs, and that was a short period. That was just 3 days, if I remember correctly, 3 or 4 days, and it dropped quite significantly. And then you had those boosters entering the market, and people immediately saw that as this will cause skill injectors to go up in price. And prior to this, the skill farmers had really, really thin profit margins. A lot of skill farmers had already said that they were shutting down their farms.
Right.
You had some of the more famous ones, IGSU. Supposedly, he had actually shut down his skill farm way before that, to the extent of maybe 400 characters or something. I could be mistaken on that number, but it's a lot. So a lot of people were suddenly, due to that event, activating those skill farms again, and starting to quite rapidly chew through those stockpiles that were. And then you didn't have new sales coming.
Why would they turn their skill farms back on during the skill injector boosting period?
Well, basically the skill injectors they were down at as low as 730 million for a large skill injector before this.
So they would have already had to have had those on stock to sell. You're saying like the month before, when they saw what was going to be given out, they went and turned those farms back on so they could get some injectors for this event?
Some probably did. I think it's sort of like not everyone does it at the same time, obviously. So you have a few weeks where people get the news, they see the development, they see the trend that's coming, and then they make those decisions. So you have a few weeks where this builds up. And once the skill injectors really did start to move up in price, I think a lot of people who were on the edge of doing it or not doing it decided to do it. Because the skill injectors went from 730 million to touching 900 million during that event.
Yeah,
so that made a huge difference.
I sold one for over 900 million. But and it surprised me. Then it went way down after that. I think it was just a peak. But if we look here, the month before this event happened, where the skill injectors became super hot and in high demand, people would have had to farm their skill characters, their skill farms, a month at least before, because you need that month, or maybe not. I guess you could do it right up until the event happens, but you need to turn those things back on to accumulate skill points that you can then put into an injector and sell in the market. That takes time to do. And I'm looking here, and yeah, 11/24. So this sale here might have, that's the one that lines up with, it's prior to the 12 days of Christmas or 13 days of Christmas. And you can see that's a really huge spike of people. It's much bigger than anything all year long. That spike is huge. The volume of multiple character training certificates were sold in the end of November. Was what? Oh, it's 2,000 per day. That's much higher.
That's also.
Yeah.
there's also because it wasn't during such a short time, so you had a lot of those people who did want to buy those galaxy packs and other meteor packs, etc. All of them had to do it in that 3-day period, basically. So when you have that much coming in, you can compare that to March, where you had, I think it was almost like 3 weeks where you have the discounts on the galaxy packs. So you had way more in terms of volume coming into the market over that period in total, but it didn't have such an immediate hard effect on the price going down as you did in the late November.
So in these dips here where the Galaxy Pack that contains these things is being sold and people are selling them on the market, thus forcing the price down, they have more time to let that happen. So you see a gradual drop, and you can see slow buying over a period of days. Same here, gradual drop. And here as well. But here you're saying there was basically only 3 days to kind of get in on this. And that's why there's such an abrupt spike in the volume.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was over 1 weekend they made a sale.
That's interesting. And that was the last time they really pushed that button, right? CCP pushed that button to give out these training certificates. There hasn't really been a sale on those since.
Yeah, my speculation is as well that market might have become a bit saturated as well, because the thing with you can buy as much Plex as you want to. The Galaxy packs you can only buy one per account, so it's a one-time thing. What a lot of people actually do is that they make a new account when the sale comes up, just because you get like, in the past you would get like 7 billion, up to 8 billion in ISK if you take the Plex and the extractors and the MPTCs as well into account. So, but still, I mean, most people who want to buy those packages have probably done it by now. So I'm not sure that they see a huge upside to doing those sales at the moment. That's just a pure speculation on my part.
Yeah.
So I think
according to the in-game graph, I don't know what their real numbers are, but in the game graph, it looks like the demand was still there. You had a huge spike, but maybe they have different statistics in real life that show like this isn't doing as well each time that we do it. So maybe by this time it'll fall off. The thing about it is those Galaxy packs, they're supposed to be for new players, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it turns out though, you could apply them to old characters. At least I did it a few times and I was able to do that. Now I don't know if that was against the rules, but because it's, you know, they're supposed to be for new players, but I was able to activate it on an account that already existed.
No, but there's not a limit in that sense. I think it's an incentive for new players to get a good start in the game, a head start in the game.
Yeah.
But anyone you can use an insanely old account to do it. But it's just you can only do it once per account.
Oh, okay. So that's where the cutoff is. You can do it once per account. That makes sense.
Yeah, but they used to have another one that's called the Crystal Galaxy Pack. I think. Unless I'm...
That had similar things in it?
It's the same thing. But that one was through Stream, I believe. And during the past months, I don't think you can buy it anymore.
You mean Steam or Stream?
Yeah, sorry, Steam. Steam, not Stream.
Okay. Yeah.
Steam.
Stream is what we're doing. Steam
That's very true. Yeah. That's very true. But yeah, the Crystal Pack is the same thing. You get 3 months of Omega time, you get 2 MPTCs, you get 5 skill extractors, and the same amount of Plex. Yeah. At the same cost as well, I believe. But that was one that they used for Steam, and they haven't used that in any other place, and I haven't seen it for a long time. So I'm not sure if they just got rid of it or...
Let's get to the bottom line for a lot of people who would want this. When's a good time to buy Plex? Should you be buying Plex? Should you be selling Plex? What's going to happen in the market? Do you have any ideas on that?
It's really it's all speculation, but you could say that the underlying trend, and that has been the case since Plex was introduced in its very first form. Plex prices will continue to go up, and we've had quite extensive discussions on this on the Discord chat, because it's a quite complex topic. We won't go into the details because that's going to take forever. But basically, my perspective is that Plex prices will continue to go up as long as we see an increase. As long as we see the type of development we have on the price consumer index, or consumer price index, sorry, and the inflation going on in the game as well. There's a few things that could turn that around if CCP would decide that they are going to try to really manipulate that market, but that's quite difficult as well. CCP has said that also, that it's kind of it lives its own life. It's an open market, and it's very hard to really control. They can do some steering of it, but in general, I would say that Plex will continue to go up. It might go down during some shorter periods, and it might spike, but over the long course, it's going to go up. I would say that this is a quite small sale. It's just 10%. We had bigger sales of Plex before, but if you're looking at doing short-term or middle-range term trading, it is a good thing to buy Plex during these sales, because it's quite likely that prices will go back up again very soon after the sale has ended. The risk you're taking, of course, is if there's going to be another sale quite soon thereafter. A lot of people were expecting a Galaxy Pack sale happening quite soon after the new year.
Well, I thought, and I was wrong, that there's a few things I've been wrong about, by the way, but some things I've been very right about that ended up being like really, really, lucrative decisions in the last 6 months. But one of the things I thought would happen was that Christmas would produce a lot of sales, right? You have Black Friday, you have Cyber Monday, and then you have Christmas itself. And I just thought, well, Plex is going to drop, so I'm just going to wait until Plex drops. And it never did. Those sales really never materialized. So I was wrong about that. And since then, what you're seeing is basically a warm winter, right? Because the insects that you expected to die in winter didn't die. They lived on, so now you have twice as many insects in the spring, and that's what we're coming into, is Plex prices didn't get hit and die. So we're seeing pressure on top of pressure for Plex being around and basically not being pulled, and that pulling pressure is making the price go up and up and up and up. And now it's overheated. I don't know if it's overheated, but I think it is overheated. There's no way to tell. But there's nothing pulling it down right now.
I have an opinion on that, and that might go against quite a few other people's opinions, as I've experienced. I would say that it's not overheated. I would say that we've had very cheap Plex prices for a long time. Because if you look at the average income of the average e-player, and that's very hard to determine, but I make the comparison back to 2010 when I was playing. Back then you had a 30-day Plex, so it was one Plex for 1 month of Omega. And that would cost you about 280 million-ish, 2009, 2010. And the average player doing PvE or high-sec mining or whatever would, on average, have to spend, I did that calculation a few days ago, I think it was 26 hours per month in order to get the Omega accounts to buy the Plex. And if you compare that to a VNI player today, that VNI player 6 months ago would have to spend roughly 30-ish hours ratting in order to buy for that Plex. So that's not a huge difference. But then you also have to remember that today you have so many other opportunities to make ISK as well. You have local mining, which can go from anywhere between 200 million ISK per hour up to 500 million ISK per hour. You have the capital ratting in Allsec, you have the Abyss, you have incursions. So I would say that the average player probably needs to spend less time than 30 hours to get the Plex. So looking at it that way, we are at the same point almost as we were in 2010 in terms of actual hours people would have to invest in order to buy that Plex. So I would say that we've actually catched up to the balance we used to have.
That's interesting. Yeah, so Lilypower says that Plex are used to buy skins. It wasn't always that way, but it has been in the last year or so. But at some point, Aurum, which used to be the microtransaction currency for Eve, went away and merged into Plex, and Plex became the currency used to buy not only time for the game, but also items in the game. And so Plex is used to buy skins now, which are decorative skins for your ships. And I don't know how those are selling, but they also had at one point, they had all the skins for sale. And then they announced that they were going to take some skins off in order to make room for the newer ones. And that would actually make their price volatile too, because now you have a rarity factor, right? Where you have a skin that's really popular but is no longer available, could be sold for more when it's not available than if it was available. So that's interesting change that might have affected things too.
Yeah, I mean, the skins are very, very good point. Because if you go back again to 2010, you didn't have the skins back then. There's another thing that also has a huge impact on the Plex prices, and that's the skill extractors. We were trying to sort of figure out during back-end calculations and all kinds of stuff to like how much are skill farmers actually, how much do they actually affect the Plex prices? Like how much of the Plex consumption do they actually account for? And I think we came to a conclusion which is very theoretical, but maybe between 25 to 35% in that range of the total consumption of Plex goes to these skill farmers, because they are the ones that are buying these skill extractors to the largest extent, and that accounts for a lot of Plex, because that's the only way you can get skill extractors except for the galaxy packs. So you have a lot of Plex going into buying skill extractors, which in turn are used for the skill injectors. And also, of course, the skins. But I don't think the skins actually do account for that much, to be honest.
Yeah. Let's look at the relationship between skill extractor, which is what we're looking at now, and Plex. And you will see it's almost exactly the same. You see that? And that is because a skill extractor ties directly to the Plex price. There is no other X factor in there. In other words, you can buy, say, 2 skill extractors for the price of 1 Plex. If the price of 1 Plex goes down, the price of 2 skill extractors goes down too. There's no other variable in there. So you'll see that they map very closely. But what doesn't map closely is what you do with the extractor, which is you extract skill points and you sell it. Now you have an X factor, the skill point cost. So you have the cost of the extractor, and then you have a second thing, the skill points that are there, and that creates a different price. So whereas the extractor and the Plex are always moving in unison, the cost for skill points is in flex. And that's always depending on how many people are farming skill points and putting them on the market. So you could see that price not be correlated with Plex. Let's look at that real quick. So here's Plex again, and here's extractors, and they're very, very similar. But now if you look at injectors, which are the extractor plus the skill points, create an injector. Totally different.
Yeah, that's really the X factor. Because that's basically a supply and demand commodity. That the more people you have doing skill farms, the more skill injectors will hit the market, causing the prices to go down, which in turn causes the demand to go up. And then you reach that point where the skill farmers don't think it's worth it anymore because the margins are so thin, and then the prices start rising up again, and that one does go up and down, unless you have some external factor like those boosters showing up all of a sudden.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. First, I want to point this out. Large skill injectors, Plex, do not have the same trajectory, even though they share a common price of skill extractors. But look at this giant delay. Here's Plex price already going up in the fall, right? Large skill injectors didn't go up in the fall. They stayed way down here. And they didn't even start going up until it started getting into late fall, November, and December. Then they started to try to catch up. Now, this is when skill farmers basically said, wow, skill points just aren't worth what they used to be. I'm going to quit doing the skill farming thing because it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth their time. You didn't necessarily take a loss, but you maybe only earned 10 million per character, which is just totally not worth it, the effort. So they quit, and that's why you have this giant valley here. This is what forced them out of the business. But then right about when they announced what we're going to talk about next, which was the booster that allowed injectors to work really well on older characters, they knew that there's going to be a huge demand for those injectors, so they turned them back on. And that's when you see skill injectors start to really make that climb because people are preparing for this event. You can see here's when the event actually hits. But people start preparing for that event by buying up. So demand's going crazy, trying to get their injectors in place before this event hits. When the announcement was, it might have been over here, so there was probably already a recovery. But this always puzzled me because I was watching it saying, something's wrong here. Like the farmers must not be making anything. I think probably because I got into farming at this point saying, oh, I'll give it a shot. And maybe a lot of people did. But the price was just, it was just a terrible time for farmers selling skill points. Skill points were not really in demand. But they became in demand here when this event hits, which is the Christmas, the 13 Days of Christmas had a little gift at the very end of it. Maybe you want to talk about it, or if you want, I can talk about it.
I think you can do the introduction, seeing how you quite an advocate for it.
Right. Well, when CCP announced, and I think this was kind of a mistake on their part, that they just said, you know what, it's a mistake, but we're going to let it go the way it goes. What happened was they announced the prizes or some of the prizes for the 13 Days of Christmas. In other words, if you logged in as a paid account, actually as an Alpha 2, if you logged in for 13 days, every day, like an advent calendar, you would get a little gift. And it compounded. So if you did it for 13 days straight, you would get the last gift, and they kept getting better and better and better gifts. So the people logging in every day over those 13 days were getting gifts. And then on the last day, they got this one gift that was really, really great for veteran players. And it was a booster. That booster, called Augmented Injection Booster, I think. The booster actually, if you ate the booster, which is just a drug, right? A booster is a drug, and so it's a temporary effect. If you ate it, during that temporary effect, you could inject an injector and get the full value of the skill points. And why is that a big deal? New players get the full value of an injector anyway. It's not a big deal to them. Players that are under 50 million, they lose 100,000 of 500,000 skill points when they inject. So they lose 1/5.
That's not quite right. Sorry. A small correction. I think it's when you get to 10 million, you get 100,000 less, unless I'm mistaken. You go down to 400,000 per skill injector. And then when you go above 50 million, it goes down to 300,000.
Yeah. I think you are mistaken. It's 5 million after 5 million, I believe.
Okay, after 5 million, sorry.
Yeah, 5 to 50. Yeah, 5 million. And so, but it's okay. The same idea, you lose 1/5, it just goes into the ether, you lose it. So you don't get it. If you were to take this booster, you wouldn't lose that. So you would get the 500,000 of the 500,000 injection. Now, still not that big a deal for anybody under 50 million. When you get to over 50 million and under 80 million, is it still? I think it's 80 million. You lose 200,000 of the 500,000. So you're losing 2/5 or 2/5. Or 20%, I think. Yeah, 20%.
No, you're correct. It's 40%. 2/5.
2/5 is 40%. Okay.
Yep.
So you're losing 40%. That's almost half. So now this injector is looking really good for you. If you're over 50 million on that character, you want to use this booster and then inject because you're going to get a much better payout for the cost of the injector. But finally, for veteran characters that are over 100 million or 80 million, I think it's 80 million, they only get like 150,000 of the 500. So they're like 70% reduction when they take it. So it's not worth, normally, it's not worth an experienced character boosting. Sorry, not boosting, but injecting skill points. They just get so little of it. So only the ultra wealthy that don't care about money are injecting with skill boosters because it's just not a good cost benefit proposition. So now this booster that they gave away at Christmas is incredibly important to them because it allows them to get 500,000 instead of 150,000 skill points per injector. Okay, so this is where things go crazy. That's a great gift. If I could use it once, that would be awesome. I would do it. But CCP says, well, there's a cooldown cycle. You can only use it once a year. I think that was what initially was proposed. And I think a lot of people said, all right, well, I'll use it. And it was a limit of 3 injectors. So if I take the drug, if I take the booster, I could inject 3 times and get 1.5 million skill points on a character. That's fine. That works out. And once you use the booster, you can't use it for a year. Okay, that makes sense because you don't want to give us the option of running away with this thing. Well, something happened and CCP decided they were going to tweak the cooldown. And basically it said you can use this after the drug runs out of your system. And that was every 18 hours, I think, at the most. Every 18 to 20 to 32 hours or 16 to 32 hours. So literally you could take this drug, inject yourself 3 times and get that 1.5 million skill points. And that really should have been it for a year. But when the drug wore off, you were able to do it again and again and again and again and again. And instead of saying you can't use it for another year, CCP said you can only do this boosting and injecting routine. You can only do it for a limited amount of time before the boosters themselves, the drugs, expire and no longer are working. And that would have been, I believe it was exactly 2 weeks. And that was a big deal because for the disciplined players, and there's a lot of them, they could essentially do this process and get 30 to 33 million skill points on a character that already had 100 million, 80 million, 100 million skill points. So it was a huge, huge opportunity to really put in a ton of uncategorized skill points in a bank, basically, so that you could apply those skill points in the future at any time you wanted instantly. So heck yeah, I originally, when I looked at that, I thought, okay, I've done my calculations and I'm going to do one character. And at one point I thought very interestingly, and this is where I think the strategy came in. I thought, well, I really want to get back to like one character, one RPG experience. So I have 3 alts that have a lot of skill points. And I don't want to play the multi-boxing thing anymore. So I'll just reduce skill points here on this character, reduce skill points here on this character. And now I have this window of opportunity to put those skill points to use on the character that I do want to play all the time. So I was basically merging characters I cared less about, alts, into my main so that I could have more SP in one character. And I thought that was kind of cool. It was kind of neat proposition. But then when I thought about it and the opportunity, I just got, dollar signs in my eyes and went crazy. And I did 4 characters and I bought skill injectors. I created skill injectors. I bought a character and created more skill injectors, all to put as much skill points into 4 characters. Matterall was one of the characters as I could. So in that window of opportunity, I put 30, I think it was 30 to 33 million SP on 4 different characters, and it cost a lot, but also I was able to buy a character pretty cheap that had like 190 skill points on it, so I was able to get kind of like a cow and cut my own steaks, I call it. I'm like vegetarian, so I don't like that analogy, but it just makes sense that instead of buying parts of something, you just buy the whole thing and then make the parts yourself. And butchery thing was the only thing I could think. I'm not sure that was a good idea in retrospect, but what it does do is future-proof my ability to pivot in the game, and I think that's what it did for people. Allows them to basically, if they say, you know what, I want to get in this Triglavian stuff, boom, you just do it. You know what, there's a certain fit that you can run Abyssal Space with. It's a hawk with all these, certain skill sets and stuff. Boom, you could just do it. So for a veteran player, it allows you to get into different gameplay, like, instantly.
I believe it was an insanely good thing to do, to get all of those unallocated skill points if you were capable to do it. Because, like you mentioned, it cost a lot to do it. I also think, well, I do have to mention though, Matterall, I think you were one of the more extreme exceptions to this as well. I'm not sure we had that many players who actually went as crazy as you did, setting alarm clocks and really maximizing it. But that's probably what you should do. If you were able to do it, that would be a good idea. I also think that you mentioned why would CCP change that all of a sudden from maybe having it once per year. I think it was on one of the Talking Stations shows. You had one of the CCP guys on it talking about the upcoming event. And I think they perceived it as a boon for the newer players, who they didn't expect to be using these boosters and could instead sell them for a good penny.
Yeah.
That was the case initially, but as we saw quite quickly, those prices dropped.
Well, initially is a nice term for it. We're talking within the first 30 minutes. Initially, it was, if you were up at downtime. Hey, McLeod, what's up?
You dude. Yeah, I'm good. I think they seriously underestimated how, or overestimated how much money new players would have to sink into this. Because, like, I mean, I'm not a new player at all, but I sunk only a tiny amount into this because, like, literally kind of couldn't. I'm not, I don't have a massive stockpile of, of ISK to basically just throw onto that sort of thing. So. It felt to me like like something that you would that benefits rich older players way more than new players.
Well,
but we had several X factors on this one. That's why it was so difficult to try to predict what will the prices of these actually be. I mean, we had people saying that they might be worth close to nothing, which ended up being the case, and we had some people thinking these could be worth up to 2 billion ISK. And it all depended on
boosters. These are the boosters we're talking about.
These boosters, exactly, the boosters themselves, the drugs you would take. Because you had a quite niche market in terms of which players are going to be able to use this. It would have to be players that are quite rich, or at least willing to get the ISK to spend on these from maybe buying Plex, or if they just have a lot of ISK lying around. You would also have to have several characters that you want to do it with. So you would have to be someone who probably uses several accounts. And when you put those things together, several accounts and accounts with that much SP as well, you're usually looking at quite old players. And quite old players don't always need that extra SP. So quite a few probably said that, well, I already have 150 million SP. Do I really want to spend 20 billion ISK to get an extra few million unallocated? So, I mean, when you put all those X factors together, you didn't quite know just how much demand is there going to be. And more so, since every account who did log in through that period to qualify to get the booster did get one. So the same players that would have several accounts to do it with of several characters probably had several accounts that would get the booster as well. So perhaps they didn't have the need to buy as many from the market, since they were already getting it from the accounts they had.
Yeah, I mean, I know I never had to buy one for the amount that I put in.
Yeah, that was where I was really wrong on what these things would be worth, because I was looking at the bottleneck being the booster itself. Like, what's the amount of people that would want to do this? And I completely overestimated the amount of people, the demand for those boosters. And so when the market opened, they opened at 500 million, essentially. And then they dropped down to basically, by the end, they were down to like 8 million. So 500 down to 8 million in the course of 14 days, really. But really, they cooled immediately from 500 million down to like under 100 million within a day or two. So
yeah, I think I remember this quite well, because you were a bit nervous at this point, if I recall correctly, because they literally went in 24 hours. I think they went down to touching the 50 million mark even.
Yeah,
and,
there was.
That's when you asked me, do you think there's a chance that these will go up again? And I was like,
Nope.
no.
I think it's pretty clear in EVE, if something goes down that fast, it's not going back up. It's dead. Like, your calculations were totally off, and people are running away from the thing and not really participating. But
yeah, but to be fair as well, I mean, we didn't know how many people would be logging in all those days either. I mean, it was 13 days you had to log in out of 16, I think, in order to get those boosters. I might be wrong on that, but it was something along those lines. So
yeah, the booster isn't even being sold on the market anymore. Although I think I still have a booster or two.
I think they tend to remove both the boosters and the cerebral accelerators when they expire.
Would like to have seen how fast that fell. Actually, you wouldn't have seen it on the graph because the first day wasn't recorded. So they kind of come out starting at like, I don't know, 160 million. You missed the real giant drop from 500 to 160 million, and then you could see the graph. So the graph didn't represent how bad a drop that was. For the people who were sitting there at 4 a.m, my time, like I was, for the gates to open and the game to come on after downtime, it was a real frenzy on trading, because 500 million sounds really good compared to 2 billion. So if the booster was going to be the bottleneck, it was good to get in on that. Yeah, Roderick says he sold his for around 200 million. And it was supposed to be, as CCP had kind of looked at it, a possibly good opportunity for paying characters that really have no use for this, because they don't have enough SP to make it worth it, to sell it off to other characters who would then buy it, and a lot of it. So it might have sold for 500 million to 1 billion or 1.5 billion. And I think the theoretical top would have been 2 billion before you really didn't get the value out of it. That's why 2 billion was as much as it could be sold, but it was unlikely to go that high. It was probably going to go as high as 1.2 billion if it had gone that way. But instead of it becoming, the booster turns out wasn't the bottleneck. There was too many people who didn't want to play this thing, didn't understand it, didn't know what they had, or didn't care. So they just sold that stuff off, and there was so many on the market that the price just fell to the ground. So what happened was it created the bottleneck on the other side of the thing, which was the actual injector. And you can see that injector started climbing and climbing rapidly. Here's the beginning of the event on the 23rd, which was the day before Christmas Eve, which was that was the very first day that you could use the booster. And you can see the volume of sales for injectors just went boop, really high. It's much more impressive if you see a year round what that looks like. It's like the Empire State Building in New York City, right? It's a lot of tall buildings, but that Empire State Building is huge, and you can see it stand out. And that's what that first day was. It was the tip of the tower of the Empire State Building. But then the volume stayed at about, I would say, 50%, 40-50% higher than normal. So there's a lot of trading going on with injectors, because injectors were the bottleneck at that point. It became more and more clear as the week went on that if you wanted to do this, you needed to buy injectors right away, and have them stored for this thing, because they were only going to get more and more expensive. And you can see here the very last day, which was the 6th, because the 7th, on the downtime of the 7th January, the whole thing was over. Those boosters expired, and you couldn't go on past that point. So this is the very last day, and this was the second peak. So right at the opening gate and right at the closing gate are the highest volume for injector sales. And look what happened between that time. You went from, let me turn on the actual median price, right? Not the high price, it's average. I remember this because I stayed up every day watching the market, every few hours, really. Super volatile, and then let's show the dots. Yeah, so you're talking like 820 million. And then by the end, the last day, we were at 860 million. So, and only a week before that, you could buy these things at about 800 million, right? 79. 79. And then when they announced this thing, they immediately jumped up to 800 million. But then when it started, they were already up to over 800 million, just over 820 million. And then by the end of it, they went up to 860 million firm. That's like the average price. So if you look at looking at it through a table, that would be December 23rd. So people were paying as high as 821, but I want to point out at the very end, because there's a feeding frenzy for these things, right? Because everybody's buying them, trying to get in before that deadline, trying to get themselves injected at full at full capacity. So people were paying 870, basically 870 was where it was really fighting for a long time, 870 million. But I actually put some stuff on the market because I would stage my orders out, right? Like I'd put in 5 to sell. I was selling at this point. I would sell 5 injectors at 850 million. Then if I thought, well, if it passes that, then I'll sell 10 injectors at 870 million. And then, if they break through that wall, then I'll sell 5 more injectors at 900 million or something like that. Well, they broke through the 850, they broke through the 870, and they went all the way over at 900 million per injector. And then came back down, and then really kind of fought at 870 million for a long time. And by fought, I mean it kept going up and down, right around that area. And so that's when I was selling injector after injector after injector after injector. And the reason I was selling injectors, I normally wouldn't have done that, but I had lost so much money buying 70 of these boosters. And I didn't buy them all for 500 million. I bought like the first 10 or 20 for 500 million. Then I bought the next 30 at about 120 million, 200, I don't know. But I ended up losing about 25 billion ISK buying these boosters. Totally miscalculating that. Luckily, I went and bought a character that had a ton of SP on it, and I just frenzied putting all that into into injectors, and selling those on the market to try to make up for the losses. And quite frankly, I was never going to make up for my initial plan because I only planned to augment one character up. I ended up doing 4 times that, so I was always going to take loss. But I think I mitigated the loss down to about 100 million, 80 to 100 billion for all these injectors. And that was actually pretty good. I think in the end I lost about, for stupidity, I lost about, and miscalculations. I think I lost maybe broke even, but maybe 10 billion the most. Which wasn't great, but I learned a lot.
Yeah, but that was so insanely fortunate. I mean, you managed to find a very sweet deal on that character out of nowhere. like the type of stuff the character traders spend a
Dream
month
of,
looking
right?
for.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I
it
got
just fell into your lap.
Yeah. Well, I was vigilantly saying, okay, I don't have any more alts to scrape SP out of. I need to buy a character, or I just buy the injectors, and that was a way to go too. I could buy the injectors for 820 million, and just be done with it. Just take it as an absolute loss. But instead, I thought maybe I'll try to mitigate that cost by buying a character, extracting the skill points, injecting my characters, and then if I have extra, I'll sell that off to kind of make up for the price of everything that I've done. So when I went into it, I thought I need to get enough injectors for my characters, but I need to get a bunch of injectors because it's a good time to dump them on the market, right? Because people are really going to want to buy these. And that was a good hunch because people did want to buy them. That was the bottleneck. And that took a lot of time and effort and energy. But what really happened is I got super lucky and somebody sold me like maybe a 200 million SP character.
It was 220 or something.
Yeah, 220 SP character. And I bought it for, I believe, I have it all written down, but I think I bought it for like 190 billion or something.
Why do I remember your numbers on that? That's quite sad.
Yeah, you're pretty good. I was thinking of writing this all up to show, because I thought it was pretty extraordinary. But that allowed me a huge amount of room for profit. And it was a guy that really just wanted to get rid of the character. The character was kind of sad. I looked at it and I thought, ooh, this is an interesting character. It's a vanity character. In other words, it was a character that had no history, hadn't done anything. It had been around since 2004. And all that had been done to that character is it had accumulated skill points, over 220 million skill points. I think it was 224. All on Amar stuff. So it had 5s on everything Amar except Titan. It was the only thing it was missing. But it had 5s on everything and every T2 ship.
And you slaughtered that character.
And I destroyed it. Just destroyed it.
Lobotomized it.
And I'll tell you why. If it was a role player and it was somebody's glorious role playing character they had done, I would have kept it. I would have really kept it for any reason that had any kind of history or heritage or anything like that. But this literally was, to me, it looked like a vanity character somebody just had on the side, just constantly investing in. And its name was Crep. Now, I don't know if that's a famous character. I've never heard of Crep. And I just thought, that's a terrible name, and I never really want to think it or say it out loud. So yes, I'm going to slaughter this character.
Here you are.
Yeah, I just did. It's the first time I've said what character it was. But, you know, I don't want anybody calling me Crep. So, yeah, I extracted it. And I'm sorry if somebody that was their beloved character and, you know.
No, but to an extent, that character has been immortalized now.
Sure, probably more so than just being a vanity character on the side, too. I did not biomass it. I stripped it down. It still has a lot of SP in it. I wasn't able to get all the SP out of it for various reasons. I kept coming down in a calculated way. Like with that many skill points, I thought, well, this character's useful, so I really only want to take this part out and sell that on the market. Okay, well, I need more, so now I'll take this out. It will no longer be a capital alt, so I'll take those skills out. Okay, I still want it to be able to do all this other stuff, but now I no longer need it to be a dread alt, so I'll take that out, put that out. So I kept coming down and it took a lot of thinking and a lot of planning to scale it down. So at a certain point when I had sold enough or fixed up all my characters and sold enough that I could just stop and it would still be useful in some way. And then I could sell it back on the market. Somebody who wanted a perfect, like Hick pilot or something like that. So I was coming down in a certain way.
There are a few things that are quite interesting when it comes to the skill injectors during this period, and even right now, actually. Because, like you mentioned before, I think it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks before the event actually happened, where you could see the speculators starting to buy skill injectors. Mm-hmm. Because I think there was a quite common consensus that the skill injectors would go up in price. No one knew exactly how much, but that they would go up in price, and they did go from 730 to touching the 900 within just a month, I think. maybe a month and a half. But people were expecting the skill injectors to drop in price after the event, which they did initially. But I had this idea that just maybe, I'm not sure if that's what happened now, but you started off having the drag effect from the skill farmers sort of starting up the skill farms again to meet that demand. That took a little while. It basically takes a week before you can actually get the first skill injector extracted.
Yeah. By the way, you can see here on screen the drop right after the event ends. You can see that giant drop. They came all the way back down to 820 million, down from 870.
You basically have a lot of skill farms being activated in order to supply that demand, and then all of a sudden the demand just vaporizes or vanishes. And obviously the supply will still keep on coming in. I mean, the skill farms are going to be active for a month. So that's quite natural to see that drop. But what's interesting with the skill injectors now is that you've been seeing this high level not high level, this quite high price on the skill injectors being kept. Unless I'm mistaken, we have high sell orders now going around 870 still in Jita and Perimeter, which is way more than people would have. I mean,
it's higher now. It's higher now than it's ever been. It's higher now than it's ever been.
I mean, it dipped down below 800, and people were saying, yeah, this was expected, and then all of a sudden you see those prices going up again. I'm not sure if that's due to, that could be in relation as well to the increased Plex prices there, to be honest, and the MPTCs as well. Having thinned out those margins again, skill farmers turning off the farms. But I also believe that this event with those boosters sort of brought some people, that was my doorbell, sorry, made some people who perhaps didn't used to use skill injectors all of a sudden started using it, and sort of ignited a behavior that they hadn't had before. And I think some of those might have just kept on buying a few skill injectors as they went along. So I think we could have seen a small increase in demand long term as well from this event.
It created a habit, which is very powerful. If you don't know the power of habit, it's why a lot of people play Eve, right? That's what they do. And a new habit of skill injecting. Yeah, something's going on, because you can see now this peaked right around here, and then everything died, right? And you would expect that it would go down to here and stabilize or something. But look at this trend. It's just been marching way up.
That doorbell was actually my food for the evening.
Oh yeah.
So I'm gonna
have a good one, man.
I'm gonna hop off.
Thanks for hanging out.
Take care, guys.
It's 10:30. We've been at this for a couple hours, I think. So we'll wrap up in just a second. Anyway, we'll talk again. I want to try to do more of these in the morning. Yeah, but that's really, something's going on there, and the skill injector market is really on fire. So is the extractor market, because that's the Plex prices going up. It's cooled off because of the sale. You see that drop? You'll see that same drop in Plex. There's a drop at the end over here. Remember, skill extractors, they run exactly parallel to Plex. There they are. But what's not going down is skill injectors. In fact, they're going up. So they're super hot. Which means it's a good time to buy skill extractors, extract skills, and sell them as injectors. Because as injector prices go up and extractor prices go down, your cost for creating the injector goes down, and your skill points that are on there, because the price is going up, the skill points are becoming more valuable. So whereas a month ago, your skill points wouldn't have been as valuable, and 6 months ago or in September, they were abysmally not valuable, right? Now the skill points themselves are really valuable. It's a good time to sell skill points. I was looking at that too, that I was like, well, I should probably just finish off that character I bought and just extract them all together and then put that out on the market. But I thought, well, the extractor prices are kind of high, and you kind of want to watch that. If you want to watch the gap between, basically, you want to see how much the skill points themselves are worth. And now with this sale, it's dropping extractors. It may be worth it to go and sell those skill points. Wow, I love this market talk. You guys like it? Maybe we should do this every once in a while, a couple times a week. We'll just turn something on and look at it and talk about what affects it and how you can try to predict the market. Of course, I've made many mistakes, and people do not act the way that you think they're going to act. They just don't. Even all things considered, where you have a really tight correlation, where they've done it, a few times, people just don't. They're just not dependable. People are not dependable. They don't react the way you want to react. This market will reflect that. In EVE Online, you would expect something to happen, and it just doesn't happen. Except for this. When CCP makes an adjustment, a permanent adjustment especially, there is going to be a change in the market that you can predict. For instance, one of the things that I did was invest in faction battleship BPCs because they were going to change how well they didn't. They were going to change. There was a lot of pressure on CCP to change the value of faction battleships. They were too cheap. They were competing with T2 battleships and normal battleships. So with that pressure from CSM and from people on forums, and the devs outright saying, yeah, something has to be done, you knew something was going to change for those faction battleships. So you knew that if you bought them now, they would be worth more later, because that's what the pressure was. They wanted to demand that those things become more expensive to use. And that's exactly what happened. It was clear that it was going to happen. You just didn't know how it was going to happen. But those kinds of changes. Another change is balance passes. When a ship costs more to build, it's going to go up in value. That's true for everything. When Moon Goo was going to become totally turned around and redistributed, and the whole moon mining system was going to change, really, you didn't know which way Moon Mineral or Moon Goo was going to go. But chances were, because if you analyze the system, it was going to be harder to extract Moon Goo, that it would probably go up in value, and it did. Well, we don't have time to go and look at it. Maybe we'll do that next show. We'll talk about Moon Goo and the changes, and historically what happened and what caused the prices to go up, and which ones are going up and which ones are going down. But we'll just tease you with saying that it was pretty clear, and Kenneth Feld of PL, who was their builder, and I had some discussions about it. He actually flew out to watch the Alliance tournament with me and Carneros and Lady Scarlet in San Diego, and he's from like across the country, but he flew out to hang out with us, which was totally cool. And Kenneth is one of those great minds. He's super energetic about things in real life. You can tell he's that guy in game as he is in real life. He's super efficient and trying to do the calculations and stuff like that. But he was saying, watch the low-end Moon Goo, because that's the stuff that's going to go up in price many times more than it's worth. Now, why would that be the case? Because if it takes you 2 hours to mine a moon for R64, Rarity 64, which is the highest, or R32 or 16, if it's the same process to mine those as it is to mine the R2, the R4s, the cheapest ones that nobody cares about, if it's the same labor-intensive process, nobody's going to mine those that cost nothing or that don't give you the high-priced stuff. If you're going to go through the work, you're going to do it for the high-priced moons, not for the low-priced moons. And sure enough, nobody was mining those low-end moons. So the price for the lowest stuff on the market went way up, 10, 20 times the price that it normally should. And then CCP announced you could moon mines in high sec, and you could moon mines in wormhole space. and I sold off everything that was low-end moon goo. Why? Because now more people could participate in that labor-intensive process, which meant that all things considered, nobody was going to, the stuff that you're going to mine in high sec was going to be all those low-end things, because that's all that was going to be available for you. They're not going to put expensive moons in high sec where you're totally protected. They'll just put the low-end stuff there. So you have this giant new labor force coming in to mine all the low-end stuff. Of course that's going to go down in price because the volume is going to go up that's on sale. So that was a good move. And I got out of all that stuff before that happened. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that interests me. Not just because it's strategic and it's, you know, you're counting money just like you're counting kill mails and all that kind of reward mechanism stuff. But I love the market because it's the one thing that's really, really hard to predict. And I'll answer a few questions and then I'll take off and then we'll do this again, like, you know, early next week. We have some really cool stuff coming up for you, by the way, this weekend, if not soon. I can't really talk about it yet, but Sunday show should be pretty cool. And we're developing a whole nother show for exploration of different topics, which will be really neat. We'll give you more information as that comes around. So far, we've just picked a host, and now we're putting the show together. As you've seen, Talking in Station has grown quite a bit. I think we had, 5 of the last 7 podcasts that are out there, which is just a sign of like how vibrant Talking in Stations as a community is doing. Am I alone in here? McLeod, you're still here, right?
No, I'm still here. Yeah.
Shit, I've been talking this whole time, and you guys have been sitting here with me. Sorry, I thought I was
Been
alone.
listening, man.
Yeah, all right.
I appreciate that you're probably talking to the audience.
Yeah, but you're a big part of Talking in Stations as the engineer that puts on the Sunday show, and you're the one that helps me with a lot of tech and advice on how to make Twitch work and stuff like that. We have some cool things happening, right?
How do you mean? What, in terms of in Eve kind of thing?
Yeah, we have the Artemis is doing the midweek report with Ron, and that's going great. Yesterday was a big show. I'm going to put out that podcast today, actually. And that was a neat show on wormhole class 2 wormholes that have static connections to local. It's a really complicated way of saying guys that hide in wormholes and sneak out to attack nullsec and lowsec. And that was a neat show. But
they're pretty chill wormholes, like I have to say.
Well, yeah, inside of them, but they're used a certain way. They're basically little burrows to hide as prey goes walking by, and then you jump out and grab it, and then you go back into your little hole and wait for the next, opportunity. So they're used a different way. They're not really wormhole people in the traditional sense. It's more like they're hiding in those little shallow wormholes. That's why it's only C2, not C4 or 5 or even 6.
You're not going to.
Yeah. Not going to. Anyway,
I said, yeah. So I was just saying, you're not going too deep into the wormhole kind of,
right?
The wormhole space as such.
Yeah, all the mysticism of wormholes and the mystery, and it's not really. It wasn't. I think it's a different group that's basically just using it to ambush people. They're hiding in wormholes to ambush people. Pretty cool. That happened last night on Talking in Stations midweek, and then we have a show for you Sunday. Which we can't really talk about it yet, but we will see you on Sunday when we do that. And
it's shaping up to be pretty good.
Yeah, and the really cool thing, I think the most interesting thing about Talking in Stations recently is just how vibrant public chat has become with all these new faces, experienced players that are now just chatting in public, answering each other's comments with other comments. And it's a playful but interesting and very informative place. I'm really liking it. We're also posting news in our public chat, and we're just pinning it as we develop stories and stuff.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to be like, I am the instigator of that kind of thing. But
your policy.
It was something which I thought made kind of logical sense. In the sense that we were always thinking about like how we were going to curate, and basically build up talking, like talking pieces about various different aspects of what's happened in Eve. And I just kind of thought, we've got this pinning capability in the channels, kind of thing. You know, roll that out to everybody who's on staff, and then, you know, just do it where everybody can see it and everybody can pitch in. Like, you know, it seems to be working, which is really nice.
All right, a few questions here. So with the war decks affecting people with structures, do you think moon mining will drop? Maybe it'll mutate. I think one of the things that was cool was another, I don't know what to call him, industrialist named Dronica, or Eve Mogul, as he's known in game, was able to be the one to hold the moon mining structures. But when he would create the mining field for the moon goo, he would leave that as a public offering, and it was free. So people would come and mine, and they didn't have to have the structure. So it didn't affect them at all, and it wouldn't affect them at all. In fact, they could really mine with impunity because they can't be war decked now, so they're even safer than they were before. The problem is those guys, and this is weird, this is how people don't react the way you think they'd react. He did not tax or put any limits on that. He would just create the asteroid belt that people could mine, thinking that they would mine it up and refine it in his refinery, and then he would live off the taxes of that, and that's how it would pay for it. That didn't happen. People mined it, and then they took off somewhere else to refine it, and so he ended up not making any money. So he had to change plans. So, you know, people are like kids, right? They impress you and fascinate you, and then disappoint you.
I think that would have worked if it wasn't for the case of when you refine materials into, you know, when you refine the ore into the actual materials, like especially when it comes to low end stuff, it tends to up in volume, or at least maybe not up in volume, but up in an awkward kind of volume, in a way that you can't actually transport it as well as you can with a lot of other kind of transport ships, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And Apollon 210 says that system that we talked about was in Heck, and people would compress it and just go and sell it in Jita. Interesting. Yeah. I think that's what happened.
Because you compress it and it's movable. But if you refine it, oh my god, it becomes an iron weight that is ridiculously difficult to move around.
Well, that's very interesting, counterintuitive. I thought if you refine it, it becomes so light you can move it pretty easily. But
well, yeah, I mean, you would think that might be the case. And I imagine Veronica probably thought the same thing.
Banked on that, yeah. But that was counterintuitive, because if you compress the asteroid before it's refined, it's even more dense and easier to move. That makes sense. And also, if you want to sell this, you really kind of want to turn the money around. You need to go to a market that's alive. So, I don't know. See, it's really interesting. There's a lot of things to consider, which what makes Eve such a great place. All right, so we'll wrap up here, but let's just do these last few comments here. Oh, that's too bad. You know what? We'll pick up this topic next time. We'll talk about high-sec industrialism. I would love to talk about that.
The do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Don't set up something thinking that people are going to refine that stuff right there.
Real world behavior versus best laid plans, and how they're totally different. You know, you think you're going to do something and you're just like, oh my god, that's a ton of work. And then we can actually talk about, like, Eve doesn't really have a crafting system. It has like an industrial system. You don't build one of something, you build a ton of it. It only recently got a crafting system with the abyssal stuff. That's definitely a crafting system. But
yeah, that is much more of a crafting system in the traditional sense of games.
Yeah. So we can talk about how those are different. I love crafting. So do millions of people who play Minecraft and who played Star Wars Galaxies and play other games as well. Crafting systems are really, I mean, that's really where I can spend a lot of time and enjoy it, trying to perfect certain formulas and that sort of thing. But Eve doesn't really have that. Eve is more like you lay out your factories and you put all your ingredients in, and you better be creating 10,000 and finding out where to ship it to, and then barely making a sliver of a margin of 0.1%, and you know, sometimes just not worth all that effort just to get a little bit of money. Yeah. Solitude. Yeah, I was actually going to put a keep star in Solitude and try to build a marketplace and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess DeLone Wolf would be an interesting... I like him and I listen to some of his stuff. He does market. He does everything. Somebody else came back recently. Who was that? It was Sir Livingston guy. What was his name? Johnny Pugh is back.
Oh,
right?
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And he does some good stuff too. He does tutorials and stuff like that. I think we had him on a Talking in Stations show early on or before he left for a while. Either one, those guys totally welcome to have a talk with those guys. Yeah, Johnny Pugh is back. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't cover today. I was going to go and look at news and browse through it and talk with you guys about it. And that's what I want to do like every couple days during the week, just to get more of a streaming process going. But Peak, who was in PL, formerly also from The Culture and formerly also from Black Legion, great little corporation that does fun stuff, left PL recently and they moved over to SkillU. So I'm pretty sure that's confirmed by now. If not, oops, I let it out. But we like those guys and they're moving over to SkillU. And then Scourge actually was a really formidable alliance that Test was having a problem with. Scourge showed up. These guys were good fighters and they're Russian mostly. But I think they're splitting in half and some or most of them are moving into SkillU as well. So SkillU is really turning a corner as far as getting competent and efficient and really active players to go out there and do stuff. I take back really active. I don't know how active, but these guys are the guys that can make things happen. Those are the ones that this whole game sits on top of. Okay, that does it for me at the end of all this. McLeod, thanks for joining me and all the guys in public here. Everybody was quiet, but let's see. What do we have? Well, Amar was on earlier. Commander A's was on earlier. Thank those guys. And I started out with Keyboard. Thank him too. And now we're going to finish the show with McLeod. Anything else, McLeod?
No. I'm just I hope everyone out there is liking the sort of chill streams that Matterall's been doing.
Yeah, these are McLeod's ideas. He's the one that said I should do these and just hang out and let people. There's a few things we can do. One is I can show you how we're editing podcasts and working behind the scenes. One is how we're gathering information behind the scenes, but also doing artwork. I think people might enjoy that, so I'll do that. And I'm glad today was informative. If you guys like this kind of stuff, let us know, because we don't know if it's if you guys benefit from it or if we're just rambling and talking for a long time. I don't mind doing them, and I have a window of opportunity in the morning, so we'll do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would like it known that I have already made a small emoji of Matterall's face, although I think Matterall doesn't seem to want to have that as an emoji for some reason.
No, you can put it out. I'm going to design some. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll design some logos and emojis on air. We'll do that next time. But yeah, we'll do that. And
we need some emotes.
Here's the thing too. I think it's great to watch people PvP and stuff because that's part of it. But how about a place where you actually talk about meta, look at the market, see what the market's doing, talk about why the market's doing that. That's the one thing that's super absent from EVE Online is how is the market influenced by all the things that are happening politically in the game? And that's something I would love to cover. And then finally, just go and explore space sometimes and, not looking for a fight, not hunting, not whatever, just go and explore landmarks and talk about this is what happened here in 2010. This is what happened over here. I used to do that sort of thing. I did 4 or 5 shows going to battle sites with guests that would talk about, we're in Asakai. Here's the moon where it happened. And we have Boat and we have Dirk and people from Test and stuff like that. And that was pretty cool. I think those are good concepts we'll do. Last thing I'll say is I've talked to Alexi who does this, or Alexis, from the Declarations of War podcast. Great podcast. Artemis does that one too. And talked about maybe doing that sort of things, taking tours and doing stuff. He's really good at talking about geography of constellations and regions and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting stuff. These are all things that we can do. We just need to know that that's something that you guys want to see.
he did fairly recently put out a state of the well, not state of this wasn't a state of the alliance or anything like that. It was like a political breakdown kind of thing, like fairly recently. I think it was like maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And that was pretty good.
Yeah,
it's on YouTube somewhere.
And that's a great comment to end on. And that is from Apollyon 210. Thanks for hanging out, by the way. I enjoyed your comments. TIS is a place that isn't us versus them. It's a place for all EVE players. And that's really what we're trying to do. Well, with that, I want to thank you guys. You can see public chats hopping, so jump in there. We will see you guys not tomorrow, but we'll see you Sunday for sure. I'll get yesterday's podcast up sometime today. And again, we will do these impromptu things in the mornings, for me in the mornings, but I think for EU, it's probably afternoons during the week and more of them. And thank you guys very much. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me and talking to me. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.